What happens when every clock in a house freezes at midnight? The silence pressing down until whispers slide through the darkness, far too close to dismiss. Time has stopped, something has awakened, and the quiet will never feel safe again. For once, silence speaks. It carries a memory that never lets go. 3. Work last night was spooky. Elena Vargas had worked late that night, and the office had felt cold with a heavy chill in the air. Everything had started exactly at midnight, when the walls seemed to hold their breath, and silence fell like a weight. One of the 3 clocks in that room had stopped at the stroke of 12, its hands frozen on the number as though time itself had broken. The clock had run on batteries, and looked ordinary until that precise moment, which made the stillness even stranger. As the tension settled in, Elena and her co-worker Daniel stared at the unmoving clock face. And then they forced nervous laughter, joking about ghosts, as if laughter could sweep unease away. Their voices had echoed thinly through the empty halls, until Elena had excused herself to walk toward the bathroom with trembling curiosity and steps that wavered with doubt. When she returned, a subtle shift greeted her, for the clock had begun running again as if nothing had ever happened. That strange return to motion seemed almost like a trick, and although it lifted some weight, the mystery remained untouched. Before they could dwell on it, another disturbance arrived. Doors creaked open and shut deeper in the building, as though invisible hands moved from room to room. In search of answers, their eyes darted to the security monitors, but every frame showed nothing at all. The knowledge that only they remained inside made the silence feel like heavy fog pressing inward. Just then, one camera revealed a drifting blur, moving slowly across the frame in arcs that seemed far too deliberate. No vent stirred, no draft existed, leaving them to wonder if something unseen was circling close by. However, the rational part of their minds recalled how cameras often catch dust, insects, or particles in dim light. But this blur looked nothing like the usual shimmering orbs. It pulsed with a strange rhythm, and the way it lingered demanded their attention. This pushed them from their chairs and into the echoing halls, each step heavier than the last. As they moved deeper, a new sound joined the night. Whispering slipped through the walls, faint yet distinct, like a woman's voice. The words vanished before they could form, leaving only the sensation that someone was close. A shiver crawled over both of them at the same moment, as if touched by a hand that remained unseen. Despite their fear, they continued toward the cafeteria, and there the strangeness thickened. Patches of warmth pulsed on the otherwise cold floor, glowing faintly with a hidden energy. Transitioning from shock to disbelief, they asked themselves what source could create heat in an empty facility after midnight. Their search carried them into a meeting room, where the air itself seemed hostile. A smell clung to the walls, heavy and sour, resembling sweat, but carrying something far more unnatural. Each breath pressed heavily on their senses, while their eyes scanned the room for answers. Then another transition came, sudden and chilling. Looking back at the monitors, they saw the drifting blur moving directly toward their former sitting room, almost as if it knew where to go. That deliberate movement froze them in place. Fear shifted into urgency, and without exchanging a word, both chose to flee. Yet even in their escape, they resolved to return. Elena and Daniel promised themselves they would come back the following night with cameras ready. Could they uncover why a clock froze at midnight, why whispers traveled through empty halls, and why warmth radiated from cold tile? The night ended with unanswered questions that echoed louder than any sound, questions that remained long after 12 o'clock had passed, waiting for them in the dark. Even as the clocks began to tick again, the memory of that frozen moment lingered. whispering that time could bend in ways no one could explain. 2. A childhood morning, when every clock stopped at midnight. Another memory from childhood returned vividly to Marcus Hale's mind. He had been very young then, and the family house had appeared perfectly ordinary beneath the soft glow of morning. Yet one strange morning unsettled that ordinary image forever. At exactly midnight, every single clock in the house had stopped, their hands frozen in unison as though time itself had been commanded to halt. The discovery unfolded slowly. Relatives moved carefully through the dim hallways, whispering in uneasy tones, while Marcus, still drowsy, noticed the silence pressing against the walls. 7 clocks in total had frozen together. Some had depended on batteries, while others relied on electricity. The precision of the event disturbed everyone, because battery clocks usually fail at random, and electric ones follow different circuits. Why then had all of them stopped at the same second, as if a hidden pulse had reached through the house? Transitioning from confusion to urgency, Marcus's father began reviving the clocks one by one. Batteries were changed, cords were unplugged and reconnected, and each clock returned slowly to life. The faint ticks and hums that followed felt ceremonial, as though time itself was reluctantly being restored. Yet with every hand that moved forward, the sense of mystery only grew heavier. Moreover, Marcus's parents shared silent looks that spoke of concern rather than amusement. They had never played cruel tricks, and the thought of waking early to frighten a child made no sense. Their eyes revealed honest confusion, mirroring Marcus's own. Could it have been a coincidence, or something that defied the reach of logic? As the years passed, Marcus grew to explain many strange moments inside that home. Floorboards creaked because of shifting temperatures. Lamps flickered during small surges in the lines. Whispers in the shadow could be traced to the sigh of wind sneaking through a window. Each event eventually settled into reason. Yet, the memory of the frozen clocks never faded. It aged like an untouched photograph, sharp and haunting. He remembered faces drifting through the rooms, yet his focus always returned to the clocks. Every one of them locked in silence until touched back to life. Transitioning into later years, Marcus learned that others too had witnessed such strange pauses. Some spoke of sudden electromagnetic surges, strong enough to interrupt both battery and electric devices. Others suggested quartz crystal faults, or waves through wiring that could strike all at once. Still, none of these explanations fully held. Could chance truly align so perfectly, or had the family stepped into a moment outside of ordinary time? Marcus carried the experience forward with quiet wonder. At times he shared it with friends who offered theories of wiring glitches or clock mechanics. Others leaned closer, whispering about synchronicity or of houses that hold memories of their own, folding time in ways unseen. Moreover, the house eventually returned to its natural rhythm, clocks ticking, days unfolding as they always had. Yet the memory remained, etched into Marcus's thoughts like a riddle without an answer. What unseen force had frozen time at midnight, and why had it returned only with their hands upon the clocks? Next up, when every clock in the house halted together, the quiet grew heavy, and something unseen began to stir, as if the shadows themselves had learned to move. And then another clock. Horror unfolded. That lingering unease grew into something darker in a world where time itself failed. Adrian Cole had always admired clocks, finding comfort in their steady faces. while their hidden gears and wires whispered quiet puzzles beneath. That fascination had turned into a collection scattered throughout his home, each piece ticking away with its own rhythm of certainty. The afternoon began with gentle warmth. Adrian returned from work, climbed the stairs, and prepared to change clothes. On his dresser lay a strange book with bold crimson letters across the cover. Daylight Savings Time. What the U.S. government does not want you to know. It had been a gift from his eccentric friend Randy, a man who thrived on odd theories and unsettling ideas. Transitioning suddenly from calm to dread, silence fell without warning. Every tick, every creak, every familiar sound collapsed into emptiness. Adrian's attention snapped toward the wall clock, which no longer moved. Sunlight illuminated its frozen face, making the still hands impossible to ignore. However, this clock mattered deeply, for it had been a childhood gift from his late father. Its face gleamed with bright yellow, deep blue, and bold red naval pennants, a reminder of his father's love for the sea. It had even survived a fire that destroyed his father's collection of model ships, leaving the clock as a treasured survivor. Yet now, it stood still, its hands locked at exactly 12 a.m. Believing the cause to be simple, Adrian fetched fresh batteries, expecting an easy fix. He replaced them carefully. But nothing changed. The silence deepened, almost heavy, so he moved into the kitchen to find more. There, the dread sharpened. Other clocks had also frozen, their faces arrested at the same time. Room by room, the truth emerged. Every single clock in the house had halted together. Could time itself have abandoned his home? Driven by desperation, Adrian searched online, and what he found was unsettling. Folklore whispered that clocks stop when death arrives. Internet creepypastas suggested something even worse. When too many clocks stop at midnight, something might crawl free, haunting minds until they become echoes of time. Was he standing inside such a legend, trapped in its telling? He twisted the dials, tried to force movement back, but nothing stirred. Instead, the house itself seemed to turn hostile. The air slithered with a sound that lived and breathed, and wet shapes began to emerge from the faces of the clocks. Grotesque limbs, slick and gurgling, reached out as if time had grown a body. Adrian tried to touch it, to fight it, but his hand slipped through the monstrosity like smoke. Instinct urged him to destroy it, yet some whisper deep within warned him it could not be killed. Darkness thickened, swallowing the room, until a twisted figure rose fully from the shadows, its limbs writhing, and its head lolling in unnatural rhythm. Flight overtook reason. Adrian ran, rushing down the stairs, clutching his phone with trembling hands. He dialed Randy, who offered frantic theories, government signals, magnetic surges, distortions of reality itself. Adrian listened, but none of it felt like hope. Then the scream came, not from outside, but from within. It erupted through his skull, sharp and unrelenting, until silence returned. In its place, a tick-tock pulsed, too precise, too steady, like a clock he could not see. For a fleeting second, he thought time had been restored. But then came the whisper, a single word, 12, repeated again and again, curling through the air in endless rhythm. Transitioning from horror to terror, footsteps began above him, slow and deliberate. Something walked down the stairs, each step measured like the beat of a colossal clock. The sound drew closer, and instinct left no choice. Adrian fled into the dark halls of his home, chasing uncertain freedom, with the whisper of 12 following at his back. If that chill curled in your bones, or made you peek over your shoulder, laugh at how brave you are, and tap like and subscribe. Stay close because the next creepy whisper is already inching forward. When silence feels safe, beware. For when time stopped, The quiet was alive and watching every heartbeat.